Hey there, welcome to episode 125 of the Let's Innovate for Vegas audio program. I'm your host, Managing Director of the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, Dan Hugo. We're recording this at 10:30 p.m. on the evening of Monday, July 7, 2025, to be published on July 8th, Tuesday, as usual. Usual. Today, the topic and title, Glocal. You might think G-Local, but maybe you haven't seen Up in the Air, which is not exactly where that term is from, but you certainly would have heard it there by Anna Kendrick in the movie. If you are not familiar with the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, let me enlighten you. Our purpose is to enable and encourage ideation, innovation, and implementation to make our communities better. I, as the managing director, try to keep our Nevada nonprofit corporation moving forward, and at the same time, as kind of the lead, sort of developer, driving some efforts, including our Agile for Volunteers initiative. Got a lot of stuff going on. Bright things ahead. We were formed as a Nevada nonprofit corporation in June of 2022. We have begun our fourth fiscal year. There is much rejoicing. Glocal. We'll get to it. Hang on. Hopefully, wherever you found this episode, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a summary that I will read to you, and several links. There are 4 of the usual links, including one that's been swapped out. You may have gotten tired of the Mastodon link. I know I will never get tired of it until we deploy it. And then 2 Glocal related links. So let's get to it. The summary of today's episode. Perhaps you heard it mentioned in the movie Up in the Air, or maybe you know it to be a real thing, which it is. This is what Glocal means for our foundation moving forward. Now for some links. The one you are used to, innovateforvegas.org, innovatefor Vegas, .org. That is now our activity website. So before we just had the one website. This is where teams and initiatives, what we're up to, a little bit more detail about that. It's a work in progress, as is everything. But we have Forkening 2025, did an episode about that already. So we've split our web presence. It has no effect on the actual legal entity. We're one big happy foundation. But from a web presence point of view, there's the .org website. And the next one, the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, I guess you could call it our company website, Innovate for Vegas, Innovate for Vegas, Foundation. This is where you might find more information about our board of directors, our governance, our data formation, our IRS filings and links and bylaws and all the other boring business stuff. Why keep those separate? Well, we can post things on our website for the foundation, and we can link to stuff like that on our LinkedIn page, because people on LinkedIn are like that. Our initiatives and our teams and our civic volunteers and the activities we're up to, those are more for the rest of the internet. So may as well keep them separate. It also makes it clear that the operation of our nonprofit business is different than the pursuit of our various initiatives. You can do both, but they are 2 different things. projectact.info, project hyphen, that's the key next to the 0 on most keyboards, act.info, because projectact.org is a completely different entity and they have their own website. No relation. They're doing good stuff though. Project ACT, that's Autonomous Cohort Tessellation. It's a mosaic. It's a discovery platform to enable and encourage connection, communication, and collaboration amongst civic volunteer cohorts and other types of cohorts. There's really no rules in that regard. Bottom up, decentralized, opt-in, all the buzzwords. A work in progress, to be sure. Hopefully by other people as well. So we're sort of facilitating, but not, we're not dictators. Agileforvolunteers.org is our agile-based whole team, not only programmers, agile framework for hopefully making the most of civic volunteer time, effort, and expertise in pursuit of initiatives and component projects. Agile for Volunteers, that's FOR, Agile FOR Volunteers, .org. And a definition from dictionary.com of the word glocal, Glocal. Just find a definition of it. It's a portmanteau of of global and local, if I could speak. So it is a real word, based on common usage, of course. And glocalization, a Wikipedia page, they don't have glocal by itself, but it's essentially thinking locally and globally, or acting locally and globally, or some mixture of those. So it's a real thing. On that note, let us begin already. So first of all, we have been in this mode for about 2 years. The act locally but think globally mode that is not focusing only on the greater Vegas area, but reaching out to others to participate and collaborate at a distance. One of the specific outreach efforts we tried, it was in October of 2023, was, let me fix that typo, was our facilitating, not tour, I had an extra T in there, was our facilitating the NASA Space Apps Challenge for Las Vegas, which was a hybrid event and ultimately a completely online event, wherein we invited anyone who did not have an event happening near them to join in. People from California, most likely. In some parts of California, Silicon Valley actually had, I think about 250 participate. This was an option in many places, including the main virtual NASA Space Apps Challenge event, but we were in the mix. We didn't get any takers. We tried. With participation and interest so low here in Vegas, and with the same allegedly true, based on anecdotal accounts, in other places, remote distal collaboration would appear to make sense if for no other reason than to make the most of the population that does want to participate in civic volunteer efforts, at least until the pendulum swings back towards larger participation cohorts in general. Did I say when? I mean if. Until? I said until. If the pendulum swings back. Glocal, I have to admit I first heard the term in the movie, Up in the Air. It is an actual term in use and is indeed a portmanteau of global and local. As one saying goes, think globally, act locally, and this is apropos. But we can think locally also. I have joined a few virtual meetups of other former Code for America brigades. I think the mindset is firmly in the local camp, as in, why would we want to collaborate on a Vegas initiative when we have our own? A better job selling the notion is indeed necessary. Telling the story, perhaps, of commonality. Why is that important? A better story or better marketing is in order. Open source at large has been as successful as it has been, not because participants are territorial, but because they are collaborative, with or without the long tail notion in the distance. If we collaborate at a distance, we can advance our local cause. Our collaborators can advance their local causes. Perhaps we all win in the near term. So we share the work that is common between us. That's some foreshadowing. As with many, if not all, open source efforts out in the world, they could be useful to someone somewhere else after the fact or between versions or whenever. Something useful here may be useful somewhere else down the road, and maybe, just maybe, someone far away will join in and collaborate at a larger distance. Local and global can come together, and it doesn't need to be software, though that is probably easier, at least to get started. It could be testing or translations or a variety of other things that you may not have been thinking of. Global hardware projects might be more work to pull off, but let's find out. They have been done. You can look. The internet is lousy with open source hardware projects that you too can participate in. So we started Glocal when we first rebooted as the Code for Vegas Foundation in January of 2022, and then we incorporated as the nonprofit corporation in Nevada in June of 2022. We were looking at what the original Code for Vegas had done. I think it was about 8 years earlier by that point. I should really get that date nailed down. It's nebulous, but the municipal partner model, wherein Code for Vegas worked with the city of Las Vegas directly, and where we could go if we were going to try to make our smart city smarter, which is a noble goal, I think. We found the municipal partner approach was not as appealing on the municipal side. They were not into it. The days of kicking off and implementing the open data program in the city of Las Vegas, possibly the main undertaking and claim to fame of the Code for America and Code for Vegas collaboration with the city, do not appear to linger on today. That became very apparent. This goes for local innovator participation as well, though from what I understand from first-person accounts, actual participation in Code for Vegas projects back then was somewhat lacking also, which is unfortunate. In general, despite an early collection of projects, now called initiatives. A space to meet monthly, thanks to Don Jacobson of the city of Las Vegas. He no longer works there, unfortunately. He had participated with the original Code for Vegas back in the day, and so was quite supportive of our efforts at a personal level, which we appreciate and miss dearly. And an initially large but quickly dwindling population of interested individuals interested in at least kicking the tires. What appeared to be a good start stalled quickly. On surveying peer groups in different parts of the country, as I mentioned, I would go to meetups for other former brigades and so on. Former and then current Code for America brigades, mostly. There are a couple of other cases, but those are mostly the ones I was visiting. This was not uncommon. It's not an uncommon situation to have recidivism wane and waning interest. In some cases, the death knell, unfortunately. So we were going to face a bit of an uphill climb to start our org again. These were groups I was virtually visiting that were still going. And so here we are rebooting. We certainly had a hill to climb. So why not collaborate across localities? This is still a head scratcher to me. Code for America had formally sunset the brigade program at the end of 2023, with brigades given some ramp down time into 2024. But the time had come to look at how individual cohorts, the former brigades, and maybe, optimistically, new upstart groups might get into the civic tech world. I say civic tech here because that is what everybody focuses on, from Code for America to the 18F organization that most have heard from now in 2025. So all manner of groups and government agencies and consultancies and whatnot, everybody thinks civic tech. The problem with this, civic tech also includes the non-tech stuff. It's often in a disclaimer of some sort. Oh, but we need other people other than just tech. So to me, in my opinion, leaning in 100% on civic volunteerism, where so-called civic tech is a subset, it's a part of it, but not the other way around, makes more sense. I've told the story many times about when we were Code for Vegas Foundation receiving the simple question, if I'm not a coder, can I still participate? So that's sending the wrong message, change the message. And I will also admit I was initially reticent. I was kind of going for the name legacy, but it turns out the name legacy didn't carry any weight, so it didn't matter. Better to have a more inviting message in the name, starting with the name, than look back. Always look forward. The theory, as I have mentioned a few times over the last 2 years of the 3 that we've been around, is that small and upstart groups, cohorts, can work on projects or initiatives with municipal or other partners, or drive their own. And hey, why not reach out to other cohorts or at least advertise the current efforts so that they can be discovered? So opportunities to collaborate might arise. A cohort of 3 people over here, a cohort of 2 people over there, a cohort of 4 people somewhere else might all be working on something similar. Let us use public transit as an example. That was our first project, now initiative, open transit. And at some point, there might be an aha moment that the common parts of public transit tools probably have a lot in, well, common. So maybe those common parts can be developed in a collaborative fashion among the 3 example cohorts here. Why keep reinventing wheels? Let's focus on the cool parts per locality, and we can collaborate on those common parts. Not that any other parts are not cool, but I hope you take my meaning. I have found to date that there tends to be some cohort silo effect present, I think more with former brigades than upstart groups. So there is some reticence about engaging at a distance with a particular project. But here's the fun part. Here's the fun fact. This is how most successful open source projects manage to thrive over time, sometimes over long spans of time, benefiting a lot of people. If your cohort is developing open source anything, it could be software, most people will reflexively think in that direction, but it could be anything really. This model pretty much works, with at least a connection and a communication baseline. Actual collaboration should also work just fine, but maybe that will take some getting used to, some selling. Talking about projects and comparing notes is not too difficult, and then actually collaborating would be a natural next step once we get there, eventually. How about some real world sprinkled in? A dose of reality. Sometimes something I found as I was looking at projects by various brigades and brigade-like civic tech orgs, on GitHub, of course, is that projects they have published, but tend to have a lifespan. And they tend to be standalone. That is, these projects exist on their own, which is fine, I suppose. And while they do make use of other open source projects, of course, like JavaScript frameworks or other code modules, lots of Python libraries and so on, maybe a Postgres database in there, a ton of open source from parts unknown, other places on the internet. And these are all code projects I'm talking about here, but the same would apply to other types of things. They do not seem to interact with or benefit each other in a particular project portfolio. Maybe I have been in the software world for too long, 30 years. But does this not make sense to me? It does not. So in other words, if Code for Vegas. Well, maybe Code for Vegas back then was working on Open Transit and MyMuni, which was called MyVegas at the time. What if Open Transit and MyMuni were both using map services and PostGIS code features in the Postgres database, so we could work together on those? Why have two projects that are completely and totally divorced from each other that could actually collaborate? And this is within our organization. So what I was finding was in other organizations, as I was spelunking the internets, I saw a lot of projects that seemed to have been developed without intra collaboration. I don't know if that was true, but just from the way the code or the repositories, the way everything was set up, it looked like they were all very independent. Someone out there will say race conditions, but we know each other. It's okay. First of all, consequential projects or initiatives in the Agile for Volunteer parlance, Agile for Volunteers, that we have been adopting and that we have adopted, do not really need to come to an end. Not that they must be a main focus into infinity, but the notion that the hard work of multiple members of a cohort, an extended cohort from the world, might just get shelved is, to me, short-sighted, maybe even a little bit insulting. I have worked out in the world enough to know experiencing project cancellation can be a frustrating experience on a good day. Sure, I learned something on the way for myself, but all of that work, all those long days, angst-ridden pondering in meetings and debugging and whatnot, just fades away. That's no good. Existing working initiatives, even if not in active iterations of development today, are great places to jump in for people new to civic volunteering. Now let us step away from coding and make any part of any initiative a jumping in point. User interface, documentation, localization, creative assets like icons, logos, visual flair, maybe other media like audio or video, marketing or crafting a story to tell, revisiting a co-creative outreach effort to pursue a refresh effort if some platform is actually working for people, and so on. By working for people, I mean, suppose we wrote our Open Transit platform and people are still using it 5 years from now. Did we end of life it at the end of the first year? No, it's still around, still being maintained. Maybe not daily, but suppose somewhere along the way we say, maybe we should find the people that make the most use of this platform we developed 5 years ago and invite them to tell us how we can make it better for the second 5 years. So civic volunteer efforts need not be shelved or put out to pasture or ended. Sometimes they get archived. That's basically the end. Maybe there's a physical manifestation in there, some hardware, a mechanical system of some sort. It could be anything. Getting started with something that works that people are using can be very valuable, even reassuring, since making an incremental improvement with a first contribution, someone new to the exciting world of civic volunteerism, a first contribution of any kind to an existing working initiative or component project, is some solid validation. This goes a long way for someone new to this stuff. Hopefully they'll make another one, and so on. They can do that at their own pace too. If it's not if it's not something that's in active development, active iterations and so on, you can fix some bugs, or you can talk to people about what would you like to see, and so on. So commencing year 4, which we did on July 1st. As we enter our 4th fiscal year, and it happens to align with our formation, and it was actually June 16th, 2022, we focused on the general notions that we are pursuing. The general notion that we were pursuing should stay in place. I should learn how to speak. That is, we focus on our initiatives that work here in the Greater Vegas area, but we are always open to collaborating with other cohorts, whether one or more people would like to join in on our initiatives or meet in the middle somehow. When you think about it, there is no hard and fast rule that says a civic volunteer acting as an open source contributor must be proximal to the other contributors. right? The way civic volunteerism works, when we really think about it, is we value the time, effort, and expertise of others, especially when they want to contribute that time, effort, and expertise to something we or I am working on, and vice versa. So if you value my time, I value your time. That's a good start. Our initiatives fit together, either a little or a lot. Smart Social, for example, is not social networking, although that could be something that's built on it, or takes advantage of it, or interoperates with it, but an intelligent platform for connecting data to the outside world, including the people in that outside world and the data that we get from it and maybe them. Open Data Capture Platform aims to provide the tools and infrastructure needed to configure the data in the Smart Social persistence layers. Capture. Why did I say configure? Well, we configure the database, data tables, and so on. Configure and capture. So we use the Smart Social platform. We define open data data sets that we want to capture. We configure the persistence layers for our application that will be a platform that will be sitting on top of the Smart Social layer or platform. And there we go. We're interoperating. That sounds like good times. So the inputs and the outputs for capturing data would be a part of that. So the Open Data Capture Platform would capture data, put it into the Smart Social persistence layer, databases and so on, and would be able to deliver it to clients that needed that data and wanted to do operations on it, providing data for some applications or other services that we develop. So it could be internally or externally. Smart Social is also a part of MyMuni and of Welcome. MyMuni and Welcome are essentially two sides of the same coin. So MyMuni is aimed at locals, residents. Welcome would be aimed at visitors. Think Welcome to Fabulous Las Vegas, a sign that is not in Las Vegas. They're basically the same, but kind of different, because sometimes somebody visiting a place is not looking for the same things as someone who lives in a place. So subtle. Keeping them separate helps to keep that notion in mind. Open Transit can use Smart Social for data and analysis, especially maps and calendars, and should be able to provide a user experience through MyMuni and Welcome. Sometimes people who live here or visit or both want to take a bus somewhere, and so on, and so on, and so on. Race conditions? Feature creep? Maybe. This is a learning experience. Repo forks are fine. Modularity is key. And again, not everything is software. But we can leverage our whole team approach from Agile for Volunteers across initiatives. It is a good idea until it isn't, and then we adjust. By the way, anyone who doesn't like Agile forgot to read towards the end of the dozen rules of Agile or suggestions that you should always reflect on the team and the methods and the Agile framework and improve it, make it work better for your team so your team works better. If something we are working on here in Vegas is interesting, or if we find something out there in the world that is interesting, maybe overlapping in some way with what we're doing, maybe just plain interesting, why would we not offer some volunteer time or accept an offer of same? Thinking globally, or at least big picture, and acting locally is a great way to engage with your users, your customers, your communities. However, you want to look at it. But you can engage with people far away as well. Even better, your collaborators far away can engage with their users who are local in their communities, their customers, and the communities themselves. That's when I get ahead of myself. Where they are, and we can pursue a whole team approach to make our efforts valuable now and into the future. No shutting down or archiving initiatives here. They are where newcomers can jump in and see what they want to do. Newcomers don't even have to be in Vegas. They can be somewhere else. Collaboration can take many forms at many distances. This is going to be a brief episode. That's good. You can hear my my voice is not cooperating today. So good for you, good for me. But I'll leave us with a couple of points about Project Act. Quick reminder. I have done entire episodes about our two special initiatives. That's Agile for Volunteers, which I've mentioned a couple of times, and Project Act. So to refresh your memory here, or to when your appetite for previous and future deeper dives returns, the Autonomous Cohort Tessellation, Project Act, was born out of the Autonomous Cohort Transformation, which we called Project Act and still do, to help other brigades go independent as we had in 2022. It was from October 22, in fact. The tessellation variation of the Project Act name became a bit more interesting from this Glocal perspective, especially before the sunsetting of the brigade program. I'm sorry, the transformation was interesting before. After the tessellation became a little bit more interesting. Discovery is the missing piece. It always is when you want to reach beyond your backyard. Where is everybody? And the autonomous cohort tessellation will ideally enable and encourage connection, communication, and collaboration, as you've heard me say many times, by making individuals, cohorts, initiatives, and open issues, the work being done, the work yet to be done, open bugs, and so on, discoverable and searchable. Why not use Google search then, or GitHub search, or whatever, and wade through the thousands or even tens of thousands of search results that are prioritized based on something that Google wants you to click on? Shall I repeat that? Or are you already thinking about how difficult it is to actually, how difficult it actually is? What I wrote is just ridiculous. So how difficult it actually is to find something like what I'm describing in the method I'm describing. This is where an opt-in knowledge graph connecting cohorts and initiatives and descriptions of work to be done and being done now and any open bugs and issues and so on can enable useful discovery that should get us to the 3 C's: connection, communication, and collaboration. So that's where the global part comes in. So if we can develop some projects locally that will work in and around the greater Vegas area, but which also may work where you are. None of our projects, none of our initiatives are directed at exclusively Vegas deployment. Even there's something that I'm calling challengers.vegas. That's the domain name. The project or the initiative is actually just Challengers. And it basically is a platform, privacy aware, of course, because you're probably dealing with underage minors, students who participate in and perhaps excel at challenges, hackathons. Prizes are often associated with challenges. The NASA Space Apps Challenge, which I mentioned, the U.S. Congressional Apps Challenge. These are both in October, but there are hackathons and other similar events all through the year, and they don't have to be about coding. U.S. Congressional Art Competition, as another example. Find your local congressperson and see if they're sponsoring your district or their district. I believe all 4 of the representatives in Nevada are sponsoring this year. So why not make not only these events more visible, but the people who participate in them and recognize and celebrate their participation and achievements? Who knows? You might have winning teams and nobody knows about it, especially here in Vegas, unless they blow up a resort or something. For demolition, to rebuild something new, don't worry. So we can work on something like that and focus on this non-unique issue with the people of Vegas not having any idea what goes on if it isn't something on the Strip or residency related or crime and politics or traffic or the Formula One debacles with lawsuits. If we are indeed a global innovation hub, we should be talking about it. We should know about it. Challengers. But you may have something similar in your city that you want to cover and enable, especially for students. And our For Vegas project doesn't have to be for Vegas. It could be for anywhere. My Muni used to be called My Vegas, but My Muni can work anywhere. My municipality, my community. So the list goes on. Nothing we're doing in Vegas is absolutely Vegas-centric. They would all be adaptable elsewhere, either in part or in whole. So we can focus locally, but we can still think globally and occasionally act globally. And that's where Agile for Volunteers and Project ACT will help us make those bridges, complete those connections, and advance those causes. So we'll see how it goes. We're in year 4. We only have 1 million years left. We'll see what we can do with it. So thanks for listening. I'm keeping this episode short. I see 31 minutes and 38 seconds mark. It'll be shorter when I truncate the silence. So lucky you, a brief episode for today. Thank you. And don't forget, Glocal. It's the new thing. It's the new old thing. Take care.